The Square Ball Podcast.
Welcome to the show. It's brought to you with Levi Solicitors, who will do you a 10% discount on your legal fees at levisolicitors.co.uk/the square ball. Do you know what my favourite part of their web address is?
The bit after the slash.
.co.uk.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the square ball.
UK wide.
I see.
Because even though Levi's are based in Leeds, you can book appointments from across the country. Virtual appointments online. Online booking system.
Mm-hmm.
It's good, isn't it?
It's very good, yeah.
And you could do one of their many services, including, Michael.
Your big three, then you've got your commercial stuff.
Don't just say the big three. State what the big three are.
People know it's the wills, the probate, the conveyancing, but there's lots of business services on there, dispute resolution things, all sorts.
Medical negligence.
Are there any limits to where we can access these services from?
Just UK wide. I mean, I did say that a minute ago.
Any towns in particular?
Oh.
Are there any exclusions?
No.
No, all included.
I think so. Even Weston-super-Mare.
What about Mowershall End?
Where's that?
Is that all right? Well, it's the large town known for its car factory.
Okay.
Yeah, it's down south somewhere.
Didn't you have a really, really grim weekend in Weston-super-Mare once? But that's probably a story for another podcast.
Yeah, I think that's why it still stays fresh in my mind.
There's Davy Hope Gate as well. You could bring it from Davy Hope Gate, which is a small town known for a famous invention.
What? Go on.
They invented some. They invented actually. It's colloquially known as the Risry Queen.
Right.
It's a mill device that they used.
Great.
It saved the lives of many children who
good.
previously worked there, and it was
Workplace negligence. You see that negligence, professional negligence.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the many sort of workplace improvements that people like Levi Solicitors pushed through. Not specifically, I don't know if they were responsible for this, but
thanks to their diligence.
But the fine inventors of Davy Hope Gate probably needed some advice about intellectual property and such. I don't even know if they do that.
This is the Brighton preview then for part 2 of the show. After that little history lesson for you from Moscow, Brighton. We've got them at home at the weekend. It was do or die this time last year, and Joffin in his little scoop across the legs of. Was it? Who was it? Cucurello? Was it Donk?
Was it Dunk flailing about on the floor, I think? But yeah, that was nice. And then it was the big pirate at the back post, wasn't it? We did actually hear from an insider that Pascal now knows we call him the big sexy pirate, and he likes it. Mm-hmm. So if you see him, feel free to shout it at him.
Presumably his parrot likes it as well.
Yeah, we don't know how well he is yet, do we? He's still not recovered from Marcus Rashford smacking a football at his head.
No, Marcus Rashford is supposed to be a nice guy, isn't he? Now look.
So-called
MBE.
Pathetic.
Yes.
But yeah, Elland Road was probably just about to be set on fire, I think, at that point last year, before when Joffy did his bit of magic, because we were looking quite relegated at that point, weren't we? And then that last-minute point just kept us in it, and then we somehow stayed up.
Imagine we get all that excitement again over the next couple of months. What a dream come true it's going to be.
They're good at Brighton, aren't they?
Yeah, just ticking over. Have you had a word with them, Moscow? Because I had a look at the table, and they've gone beyond their 9 wins that they've allocated.
How far are they now?
I think like 11 or 12,
I'll have a look for you. They've won 11 games.
There's loads left as well.
They did this last season.
They've got 15 games left to get more wins over and above their allocated 9 from the Premier League. Do you know what? If we got some of their allocated 9, if we got to their allocated 9 this season, I'd be quite happy.
It seems a bit unreasonable that they're so good. Can't really resent it either, because they're not like the clubs that we like traditionally hate. I don't think we were fond of each other in League One, but it's also kind of, you can't really object to what they're doing because you remember being in League One with them. I go like, oh, fair play. Like we good work, lads, because we made a mess of it.
Because they've recruited well, even when they've sold. Their recruitment has been excellent. The backfill, if you wanted to call it that, has been good. When they've got rid of players, and they've progressed steadily season on season.
They have a clear idea of what they're doing, because they don't seem to really care what they're doing in the nicest sense, because Tony Bloom, who owns it, just seems to just like doing it.
Yeah.
That's his thing. And they bought, what's the Belgian team that they bought?
Genk.
I don't think it's Genk, but they bought a Belgian team. And it's basically just because that team was qualifying for Europe, and Tony Bloom and his mates fancied like owning a club that's in Europe.
It's Royal Union Saint Gilbert.
There we go. And yeah, they're just like, oh, we think European football would be interesting and a learning experience. Like we might gain some knowledge that we can use at Brighton, and also we'll have a laugh.
Union
So it's like,
Union
fine.
SG, they are known as colloquially, by the way.
Are they the ones who Thomas Christiansen took over for a while? No, he didn't buy, but managed. I can't remember.
Possibly.
Anyway, so they just have that attitude of like, why don't we just be really good at running a football club because it'll be a laugh? Whereas Andrea Radrizzani, to use a local example, seems to be a bit more like oh, how can I be an innovator in the football space? Because there isn't really a lot of that in Brighton's book, like the model, like just buy some cheap players, make them better and sell them for loads of money.
Although weirdly,
Like make the stadium dead nice, and they did that thing of putting on local beers for away fans and stuff, and it's not difficult, is it? And it's not like it's not the Uber of football. It's not Spotify. It's just selling like good beer to people who want a drink.
away fans at Leeds though get to drink in what was once Beeston's finest
Preeminent, if you would like.
finest restaurant. It wasn't,
'Cause, I mean,
Ken's,
you can
Howard's
underst-
restaurant, wasn't it? Yeah.
You can understand the need for a Michelin starred or attempted Michelin starred.
It was essentially Ken's dining room, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That he decided to build. He
best
liked
bit was,
somewhere he liked.
Was when we used that as the away dressing rooms during the COVID. I think it was Chelsea in particular.
Like, why
Had
does
a
this look
bad
like
time.
an 80s wine bar? Which is essentially where Ken's head was stuck at the time, wasn't it?
It's where Ken's always been. It was weird actually. Following the discussions we were having about season tickets and the need to tear everything down, we've just spoken there at length about how good Brighton have been and how well run they are as a club. Just looked in their 5 years now in the Premier League, they've posted losses of £270 million. So they're really well run and they still lose money.
That's over the 5 years.
Over there, yeah. They've not posted because accounts rose a year behind. Therefore, accounted 4 years in the Premier League, they've lost £270 million.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
but then again, it's from an accounting point of view, it's good to lose money because it means you get tax breaks, doesn't it? So so if they're losing money, they can offset the losses against future years. So there's actually
I think that's just a loss,
Also, is that including transfers?
I think so.
Because they've had
because they sell someone for 50 million every year, don't they, Moscow?
they've taken to that recently.
Yeah, that's a new thing. In fairness, they
Yeah.
were just sinking money in for quite a while.
don't
They
forget
were doing
we've-
pretty well.
I was going to say we've got FFP to contend with, haven't we? Profit and sustainability. So that's what's that 103 million over whatever 5 years or 3 years? Sorry.
Yeah. So they're but that's the thing with Tony Bloom not trying to do anything too outrageous. He just has that, like, to him it seems to be worth that. Just to have his life. It's like, yeah, it's getting into football to try and make, well, this is what we wonder if Todd Bowley and Clearlake and the like will discover. Getting into football to try and make the profits is a lot more difficult than getting into football and just going like, yeah, it's going to cost me quite a lot of money, but I get to run a football club and be dead good at it.
We lost 1-0 down there earlier in the season, that was when we debuted Sammy's Pyjamas kit, wasn't it? I think.
Do you know, I watched the highlights of this earlier. I can't even remember.
Yeah, I think so.
Will have been, won't it?
Yeah, I think so. And it's that classic thing of being okay up to a point under Jesse Marsh, but still being quite toothless at the same time.
There was the Sinistera chance was the main one, which was Aronson cutting in and he shot and it went across the box and Sinistera for some reason went with his wrong foot rather than just turning it in at the back post, and that was probably our biggest chance. Meslier made, from watching the highlights anyway, and there were Leeds highlights too, so they will have been biased, but Meslier made some decent saves.
God, it was the fourth game of the season.
We didn't. Oh, it was at the start of it. It was Brynloss in third place, fifth, and I thought, Jesus, that feels like a very long time ago.
Because
Doesn't it?
we'd beaten Wolves, drawn at Southampton, which we should have won, and then we'd beaten Chelsea, and suddenly the world looked all right. We thought, this is it.
Oh well, Jesse Marsh, carefree in a white shirt on the touchline, untucked. He's a bit unbuttoned.
Yeah, relaxed in the south.
He's loving it. He's loving this
sunshine.
Premier League life.
Yeah,
It is interesting to see some of the changes since then. And I was thinking about this with the old why Jack Harrison can't cross question. And the team is very different to what we had. I mean,
what's the lineup? Let's have a look then, shall we?
I've got it here, in fact. There's not a huge one from the Brighton game. The Chelsea one felt more stark when I was looking at it. But we had Rodrigo up front, Harrison, Aronson, Dan James started. We had Rocco Adams in midfield, Sexy Pirate at left back, Diego Llorente of Roma, Robin Koch, Rasmus Christensen. So out of the back four, there's only Robin Koch still playing. Mark Rocker's not been in the midfield lately. Dan James plays for Fulham. Rodrigo's injured. The bench We had Hjelde, Rotherham, Drama, Luton, Click, DC United, Forshaw, Leeds General Infirmary. I'm sorry, Adam, but it's
Gelhardt,
I don't call him Adam like he's my mate. Somerville, still here. Sinistera, injured. Gelhardt, Sunderland. Sam Greenwood wishes he was Sunderland. So there's big changes there, and it was the thing. There's no excuse really for Harrison putting the ball into the shed end or wherever it was, but there is a question of never having actually played a game with Jorginho Rutter in any meaningful from the start in the Premier League, and what that does to everything else. And the back,
he definitely wasn't in the. He's no striker who's going to be in the places Jackie was hitting the ball to. It is worth saying that.
But it was. It reminded me a bit of when Bamford actually played. It was a game away to Brighton. It was, and they put their three massive centre backs and two enormous full backs all just around Pat Bamford. It was Brighton away, and then we were Harrison and Alioski cross to him then. Well, we can't. Where is he? Nobody can see Pat Bamford for a dunk. And who was the other? Who else have they got that's tall? All of them. Webster, and they had even bigger players. That's why I think it's why they had to sell Cucurella.
With the over the average height.
You have to be taller than this to ride Brighton.
Dan Burn, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just a land of the giants.
Too big for a left back.
So it was all very silly, and I had some thoughts along those lines from not just Jackie but the team in general on Saturday. How do we get the ball to this French kid who we only met 2 weeks ago, and then we've hardly had time to talk to Javi because we've been travelling up and down the M1 to play fake London teams.
Let me give you some hope, Moscow.
I've got loads of hope because we'll bring it all back. And we'll lose
S Club 7.
Yes.
Brighton and Hove Albion, the goal was scored by Pascal Gross, assisted by Leandro Trossard. Trossard now plays for Arsenal, so we can rule that goal out. That's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So that's 0. So we're on a par with them.
Good.
And that's it. That's all I've got.
Take a 0-0 then?
No, we'll win this one.
Okay. On what? Based on what?
It's about time we won a game in it again.
It's about time we beat Brighton again. Got an absolutely awful record against them. We did beat them in 2017, which was so that was good.
6 years.
Let's see if any people are going to be playing. No, there's not.
Rodrigo
there's not to look at there.
Spotted in Morrison's. It was Matty Mabbott who was photographed doing a Leeds salute alongside a grinning Rodrigo. He's by the fruit and veg counter in Morrison's. Rodrigo appears to have, I think it's a bag of baby plum tomatoes in his left hand.
And what's in his trolley?
Donuts.
I think
donuts than you've ever seen in your entire life.
That's a lot of donuts.
I think the fruit and veg is just behind him. I'm not sure he's holding that.
Oh God, you might be right. But it looks like
It was his birthday though, wasn't it?
Yeah,
so he'll have been getting his taking his birthday snacks in.
He's wearing a woolly hat.
Or it's just Weston McKennie's lunch, eh?
A puffer jacket and some shorts, which is how I like to shop in Morrison's.
Weston McKennie's dad's going to be killed.
So he was photographed in there on the 6th of March, and the tweet suggested that probably back this weekend, it says in quotes, and Matty says, "Yeah, fucking love to hear it."
Bamford's supposed to be back as well, isn't he? It was supposed to be just a
1
week thing.
An embarrassment of riches, Moscow.
So we'll have him. Sonny Perkins scored a couple for the under-21s against, admittedly it was Derby.
Dylan scored 1 as well.
Derby have scored, okay. Yeah,
he scored a 1. He did put on an assist though.
He looked really upset about one that he missed as well. Before he scored, he was doing a real proper sulk, and looking to the sky. I mean, it's York Community Stadium in an under-21s match, and he's shaking his head in the air like he's Messi's missed a penalty in the World Cup final. Oh, never! The Argentinian people will never love me. Why am I going to do this?
I'll tell you why we're going to win. Brighton will be more expansive now under De Zerbi than they were under Potter. So we tend to fare better in terms of structurally against teams that are more expansive. Therefore, we're in with a shout here, boys.
He's changed his goalkeeper as well. He's put Jason Steele in because he says he's better with his feet. So we've got
he sounds like a cop.
We've got a chance against his hands, yeah.
Didn't Barnes have a keeper called Steele? In my head,
him.
Is it him still?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Jason Steele.
I'm pretty sure this is where I then leap to the.
No, he never played for Barnes. He never played for Barnsley.
Well, then who played for Barnsley?
And
why do we both think Jason Steele played for Barnsley?
It might have been a different one.
Is Lamptey back in at right back now? Is he playing down the right? so we could remember that matchup against Junior Firpo when Junior Firpo got booked within about 10 seconds.
It's Luke Steele you're thinking of.
Oh, his brother.
Well, we're both thinking of.
Yeah. And Brighton, I mean, you know, they've got the good rep, but let's look at the results. So let's find reasons why they're not actually that good.
Can I say, isn't it great that we're no longer overly concerned by Junior Firpo?
Well, he's just a good player, isn't he? They beat West Ham 4-0, but West Ham are pathetic and going down. They beat Stoke 1-0, but that's the Championship. Newcastle away, I mean, that was postponed. So what did that tell you?
Cowardly then.
They lost 1-0 at home to Fulham, and we've seen Fulham, they're not that great.
Well, we should have beaten them in the FA Cup, shouldn't we?
Yep. Drew 1-1 with Palace, and Palace are also starting to get a little bit frightened of going down, which is fun.
The old M23 derby, that is it? A23?
Everybody's yeah, they hate each other, don't they? Everybody's welcome in this relegation battle. I still think Chelsea could go. They beat Brighton 1-0, which they should be beating them by more.
They are Brighton.
They beat Bournemouth 1-0, the other seaside town. They beat Liverpool 2-1, but it was that bit where everyone was beating Liverpool. 2-2 with Leicester, and we know Leicester are no good. 3-0 against Liverpool again, but as before. 5-1 against Middlesbrough.
So I don't know why
I'm bringing the FA Cup into
and
this.
None of them count.
4-1 against Everton, but then you put them up against an actual good team, Arsenal, 2-4 defeat. So what does that tell you? Southampton, they beat them 3-1, and we're better than them.
Will they be playing a good team this weekend?
Yes, they'll be playing the mighty Leeds United, the greatest football team that the world's ever seen.
They're weak at stopping opponents from creating chances, so we'll be fine. We'll have loads of chances and score loads of goals, and they're weak at aerial duels, so finally we might be able to be dominant in the air.
Willie Nanto. Soaring.
Would you put him back in?
Yes.
At the expense of what, Somerville?
Jacqueline. I thought Somerville did pretty well against... He's weird as Somerville because he's got some fairly big problems with his game, but he also looks like one of our most dangerous players on the ball.
Well, he's very creative going forward, isn't he? But he does tend to leave us a little bit exposed if he doesn't track back.
Yeah.
I think he might be useful in getting the best out of Luke Ayling by just pissing him off constantly.
Right.
Because he does. I don't think he works to the extent that Ayling would appreciate to help him defensively, and I think that maybe gives Ayling something where it's like, fine, fucking hell, I'll do it all myself. And Ayling starts bombing up and down the right side like prime Mel Sterling and then running back. Well, if he's not going to fucking defend, I'll fucking do it. And he's got that thing where like you can shout at him like, fucking come on, Cree, you're not helping me at all. And it just makes him play loads better, while Somerville can concentrate on attacking, which he's much better at. So it's the best of both worlds, and I quite like their little uneasy relationship. It's like I'm more into that than I was with Pat Bamford, who seemed to have the like his once per match thing of marching back to the penalty area to have a go at Max Verber about something. I wonder if maybe that's behind his leg injury, where Verber has just asked him politely not to do that anymore through the medium of like kicking his knees off. But the Ayling Somerville tension is quite exciting, and then Harrison and Firpo, I think that's the danger with dropping Harrison, is those two really get along, and I think you need them. It was telling against Scum as soon as Harrison went back to the left and was playing with Firpo. That's when it was Southampton. That's when we scored. Harrison went back to that wing. We reunited Jackie and Junior, and what's happening? The people are playing. It was Harrison backheeled it to Junior, wasn't it? In their penalty area. The whole thing was just beautiful. And so we need those relationships. Because we were talking before about
this is like what kids who play FIFA call the chemistry, the chem.
Well, exactly. There's a lot of new players there getting used to each other. So when you've got Jackie and Junior, Luke and Cree, solid wings, now we use them. Nothing can possibly go wrong in the middle. And then you've got, Weston and Tyler, best buddies. So that should be working. And then
we're essentially creating like a club-wide buddy movie, aren't we then?
Yeah, and then it's just a matter of not leaving Rutter alone. Verber and Koch are just delighted to be able to trade German, Austrian kind of familiarities.
Famously friends, going back some...
See this, well...
As a nations, I mean.
It's there's a shared language there. And I think Robin Koch's the kind of person who'll be friends with absolutely anybody, so I don't think there's a problem. But I think they'll be fine. So it's just a matter of... Well, actually, yeah. It's just occurred to me. I was like, who can be friends with Jorginho Rutter? Well, his translator. Ilan Meslier, who was
shout from the back,
helping him understand Brynlaw's questions, and with a very wry little smile on his face, almost as if he was laughing at some of Jorginho's lack of capability in French. Well, Jorginho was kind of saying like, what is the word for this? And Ilan was like, did you not go to school?
Let me just stop you there, because you're talking about laughing at that. Reports this week in Kicker in Germany that Jorginho Ruth was crying at the prospect of having to come to Leeds United and had to be convinced, basically at gunpoint.
As I will be on Saturday morning.
3 home wins.
But then he met Ilan, didn't he?
Do you think? Well, I reckon we might stick Rocker back in for this, because they've got. Well, since we last played them, they've got a £100 million midfielder and a World Cup winner, haven't they? Because Arsenal tried buying Caicedo and McAllister went and did that thing. So I think we will put more people into midfield to beat them. Mm-hmm. And we will.
Good lad.
It will be interesting to see what Javi Gracia has done with a full week, because he had his full day. He had his afternoon after the work permit before Southampton, and then if you assume Sunday was like a recovery day, Tuesday you're travelling to Fulham, Wednesday recovery, Thursday training.
Send Rodrigo off to Morrison's to get loads of donuts.
Yeah, and then
sugar.
This was the week before, and then Friday we were travelling down to play Chelsea again. So it's only after the Chelsea game that you could really go on that. Right, Monday to Friday, I've got them every single day, and I can say to them, what I want you to do is score goals. And every day, probably texting them as well. It's like, lads, key message. Really want to instill this. Score goals.
The Square Ball Podcast.